Hey guys, so today we are going to see how to install Unity. We'll go over the Unity interface and also talk about the basic building blocks of a Unity project, which are themes, game objects, and components. So let's start. First of all, the first thing that you need to do, if you don't have already Unity, you need to install Unity. So to install Unity, you can come here to the unity3d.com, get Unity download, and choose the download Unity Hub. Basically, the Unity Hub is a small program that allows us to manage different Unity editor installations. So you can have different versions of Unity editor, and each project might be working with a different version, and that's what the Unity Hub is for. So when you install the Unity Hub, you're gonna have this one here. This is the hub, and to be honest, I don't remember the last time that I installed Unity Hub, and I didn't try that now. I didn't uninstall it and install it again just to see the whole process. But I'm almost sure that when you install the Unity Hub, only you won't have a Unity editor installation by default. So to install a Unity editor, you come here to the tab Installs and just press Install Editor. Now, you can go with the recommended version. The only thing that you need to make sure is that the version that you are selecting, if you are not using the recommended one, you need to make sure that the version that you select is at least 2021. And the only question here is that I'm not going to go over how to install both, but before both becoming a Unity visual scripting official language, both was a third-party plugin. And up until 2021, you need to install that third-party plugin after starting the new project and everything. And from 2021 up, the both and the visual scripting plugin already comes pre-installed with Unity, so you don't need to worry about that. That's the only question why I'm saying to you to install at least 2021 up. So install the new version. And here in these options, you can see that you have a lot of options here, a lot of platforms. So when you are installing a new Unity version, you need to install modules for each platform that you intend to build your game. So for example, if you are building a game for Android, you need to install Android build support, for iOS build support, then you have Linux, Mac, Windows. And in this case, the only one that you are going to need is the WebGL build support, because we intend to publish our game at the end into WebGL to have a web build just like Scratch runs on the web. We want our game here to run also on the web. So select this one and install the Unity version. I'm not going to install it because I already have a bunch of them installed. But after that, you can come here to the projects, and it's here where we create a new project. So to create a new project, you have this button here, New Project. You're probably going to have like the version that you selected here. If you have only one, so it should be selected. And you have a lot of templates when you are creating a new project. I'm not going to go over the templates or how they work, but it's out of scope for this video. But what you need to select here is the 2D template. This only changes the configuration of the project when you start it, and you can, if I'm not mistaken, once again, I haven't tried, but I'm under the impression that even if you select 3D, you can go up to you can still use or create a 2D game and the other way around. But so that we have a project already configured, just select this 2D. And here have the location of the project. In this case, I'm going to put, on Unity from scratch, which is the folder that I have for this project. And I'm going to call it Unity from scratch start. And create project. Okay, you can see that now it is creating the project. Oh, now it's opening I have this opening on the other window, but yeah, you're gonna have like open project. So it's using the template to create the project and configure everything. Okay, and we are back. So after you create a new project, it will automatically open Unity. Here it's usually like an update check, so it's just saying that I have this version and I still have a new version that I could download, but I'm just gonna skip new version. One thing that I usually recommend when you are starting a new Unity project is that when you start a project, you select a version, usually the latest one. At least this is my preference. I usually select the latest one, and I don't update the Unity version while I'm working on the project. Even if it's like a minor, if it's like a patch releases or minor releases, I don't update Unity version because it might break something when you are, especially when you are working with third-party plugins and stuff like that. So this is just an advice. At least this is what I do. I don't update the version up until now. Okay, now I make sure at least that, okay, now I need to update the version, so this might break and I need time to make changes and everything. So it's just like to be a conscious choice. Don't update just because it says, okay, you have a new version, you can update it. Don't do it. Okay, so now we have Unity, and this is the default Unity layout. You can see that we have a lot of tabs. These are the main tabs that you need to understand when working with Unity, at least the main ones. You can see like they are the default ones. So you have hierarchy, the scene, the game. These are two tabs here. We have the inspector, the project, and the console. The console is not as necessary since we will be working with visual scripting, but still it's important to have it in the window. One thing that I usually do when I'm working with Unity, I don't use this layout because I don't like it. I don't know. I'm used to work with another one. And if you come here to window, just before showing you the layout, you can change the layout any way you want. So you can just drag the tabs. You can see that you can undock the tabs so that they are not connected to anywhere, and you can even put it on another screen if you have it. Or you can dock the tabs wherever you want, and you can see that it will just dock there on the screen. But Unity comes with a set of predefined layouts that you can use. So you can see that you have like these 5 predefined layouts. My favorite one is the 2x3. So I usually use this one or a modified version of this one. And this is the one that I'm going to recommend you guys to change, because it's also easier for me when I'm explaining stuff, because I'm really used to this layout. Now I make a few changes to this layout. The first thing that I always do is here in the project, you can see that you have like these, they call it 1-column layout or 2-column layout. You have like these 3 dots here, and you can change the layout. The 2-column layout, it shows you like the folders on the left, and when you select the folder, it shows you the contents of the folders on the right. And I don't like this. Especially if you don't have a lot of space here in the screen, I prefer to use the 1-column layout. So you can have like an explorer. It looks like, what did I do? I don't know. It just started like loading. Okay, no, yeah, I don't know. You have like 1-column layout. You have like the folders, and you have the contents here. And I prefer to have this view, just like a personal preference. And this is the one that I'm using. That's why I'm just telling you guys to maybe change it so it's easier for you to follow the tutorial. I'm not saying this is the best layout, but this is my favorite one. And just to show you the whole layout that I usually use, besides this, you can see that the console tab disappeared. So you can come here and say General, so to the menu Window, General, and select Console. And now you have the tab of the console, and usually I put the console here and just drag all the other tabs here. And this is the main layout that I usually use when working with Unity. I mean, it also depends a lot on the size of the screen that you have. Right now I'm using my screen is quite big, so I can have it layout like this. If the screen is smaller, I might just hide the console or something like that. But usually this is the layout that I'm using. And so we have, like I said before, we have these 6 different tabs in the Unity interface. Now, the first thing that we are going to see is that we have these 2 tabs here, the Scene tab and the Game tab. So the Game tab is basically the game view, is how your game is going to look when you build the game. And it's also when you play the game here in the editor, it's also where you test the actual game, where you play the actual game, where you click stuff to happen in the game. And in a way, like I said, I'm going to always try to make a parallel with Scratch. Here we have Scratch, and basically this scene and game view correspond to the stage view that we had in Scratch. The only difference is that Scratch, you only have one view. So it basically, Scratch uses the stage view as a scene and a game view combined. So basically, you put your objects here, so you can drag and change your objects here in the stage view. And when you play the game, you also play the game directly on the stage view. Here in Unity, making the parallel, here in Unity, this stage view is divided into two different views. So you have the scene view, which is where you place your objects, where you position, where you change the position of the objects and everything. And then you have the game view, which is where you actually play the game. So this is the first two views, and I'm going to go over the scene view in just a bit. But just to make another parallel, in Scratch, when you want to play the game, you press here the green flag, which is the way to start the game. In Unity, you have the play button, which is exactly the same. When you press play, you are actually running the game. In this case, it's not doing anything because our game doesn't have anything. But that's the green flag is the play button in Unity. And now let's just do something else already. You can see that when you create the project will have the platform will be Windows if you are creating a project in Windows, Mac, and Linux. One thing that we are going to do here on the build settings, let's change it already to WebGL. Just so that we can get this out of the way, the project is already configured to WebGL, and that's it. So to configure this, you go to the menu file, build settings, and here in the build settings have all the platforms. And if you don't have the WebGL here, you need to install the module for WebGL. So you need to go back to Unity Hub and install the module. So, but if you have any problem with this, just hit me up later and we can talk about it. I can help you set this up. So press WebGL and press switch platform. It's going to switch. It's not going to happen anything else in the project, but it switched to WebGL. And another thing that we can do, so that we can have a preview of the game here, exactly how is it going to appear when we build the game for the web. You can see that the game view has like this free aspect here selected, which means that if the game will expand to the size of the game view. So it's like if the game didn't have a specific resolution. So to get a specific resolution, I already have this one Scratch created here, but you can create a new one. You can call it Scratch and set a fixed resolution. In this case, I'm using the double resolution from Scratch. So instead of Scratch has a resolution of 480 by 360, if I'm not mistaken. So the resolution that we are going to use is the 960 by 720. So you can see, even if I enlarge this view here, this is exactly how the game is going to look when we build our game. So this now is exactly the same as a stage view. So it has a fixed resolution, and we can preview our game here exactly how it's going to appear. Of course, I don't have enough space here to have the game with the full resolution. You can see that when we decrease the size of this tab, you can see that the scale changes. And now we are seeing the game view with the scale of 0.74, but we can already view the game with the correct aspect ratio that it's going to have when we build the game. So with this out of the way, so our project is already built for set up for WebGL. We already have our fixed resolution. So we saw these two tabs. So we have the tab of the game and we have the tab of the scene. And now let's see the other ones and how a Unity project is actually configured or set up. What are the basic concepts of a Unity project? And basically, a Unity project, always have one or more scenes. So what is a scene? A scene is basically, you can think of a scene as a level in the game. So it's basically a space in your game where you can position stuff, where you can create your game. So a scene is where we are going to position, in this case, the sprites or the images that are going to create the game. Why do I say that the project can have one or more scenes? Because like I say, you can think of a scene as a level. So you can have, for example, when you create a game, you can have one scene for the menu of the game. You can have another scene for the first level, another scene for the second level. So you can have different scenes. But usually when you create a new project, you always need to have at least one scene. Actually, when you create a project, you can see that we have a scene already created for us, because we need a scene to actually build the game. Now, So we have scenes, so a project has one or more scenes. Now, like I was showing you, I've selected here the sample scene here in the project tab. So let's talk about the project tab. The project tab is basically where you have all the assets and everything that you have in your project. You can see it on the project tab, all the files. When I think everything, I'm saying all the files, so all the images, the sound files, and in this case, the scene files. And this project tab has a direct relationship with the file explorer in your computer. So if you come here to so these are actual files. It's not only like a virtual stuff. So if you can come here to the sample scene and you press with the right mouse button, you can press show in an explorer, and you can see that it is an actual file that sits in your computer at this location. And the location is basically where you created the project. So when you create a new Unity project, you're gonna have all this, but the assets inside the assets folder is what corresponds to this project. So you can see here, assets is the folder assets that you have in your computer, and everything that you have inside this folder is going to show up here in the project. So the project view, basically the project tab, basically what it shows us is the files that you have inside your project. Now, besides the project view, we have this hierarchy view. And the hierarchy view also has a list of stuff inside. And the hierarchy view, basically what it shows is what we have in our scene. So here you have the scene view, where you can see your objects and everything and position them and everything. And the hierarchy view is basically a list of the objects that you have in your scene. Now, when I say objects, this is another concept that Unity uses. So we have a project has one or more scenes, and everything that it is inside a scene, it's called a game object. Okay, so scenes are made of game objects. You can always have one or more game objects. So everything that you can see here, all entries that you see here are game objects, and these game objects are positioned somewhere inside your scene, so they exist inside your scene. Now, when we create a scene, you can see that we already have one game object created for us, which is the main camera. And all scenes need to have at least one camera, because the camera is the one that is responsible for rendering our game and showing our game when we build the game. So for example, if I delete the camera, you can see that no cameras are rendering. So if I try to build the game now, the game would always be black because we don't have a camera to render anything. I'm not going to go over the details of the camera right now, but so that right now I want you to understand that, okay, all things need to have at least one camera. And now, going back to the game objects, like I said, we have a project has scenes, the scenes have game objects. Now, the camera is a game object, like any other game object. And you can also have like empty. So what is a game object? Let's say, let's see what is a game object. If you want to create another object, you can, for example, come here to the plus sign and create empty, or you can press with the right mouse button and create empty, and you are going to create a new game object, an empty game object. Why is it empty? Why they say that it is empty? It's because a game object is made of components. An empty game object is a game object that doesn't have any more components other than the necessary ones. So what is a component? A component is what you see here on the right on the Inspector tab. You can see that when I select different game objects, the Inspector tab updates and shows me the components of that game object. So my empty game object has a transform component, and my main camera game object has a transform, a camera, and an audio listener component. I'll come back to this in just a bit. So one thing that you can see in game objects is that both of them have a transform component. So, and this is the only necessary component that all game objects must have, because, like I said before, a game object is an object that belongs to a scene, and the object to belong and to exist in a scene, it needs a transform component to say basically where that game object is positioned in the scene. So if you imagine the scene like an empty space, which is basically that, the scene is an empty space where you position the game object, the transform component, is what tells us where that game object is on that empty space. So let's see here the game object when we select the empty one that we created. So we have this transform, and the transform has a position, a rotation, and a scale properties. So right now let's just worry about the position. You can see that the position is with some weird values. So let's just put 0 in all of them, so it is press and press 0. And the GameObject is now and what we call the origin of the scene. So if our scene is an empty space where you can position stuff, that empty space always has an origin, which is a point in space, which is located at the coordinates of 0, 0, 0. In this case, since we are working in 2D, I'm not going to be working about the z-axis, so let's talk only about the x and the y-axis. So right now, this means that our GameObject is on the origin of the scene. Now, here we cannot see our GameObject, because since it's an empty one, we cannot see it. So when we select it, we can see that it doesn't appear here. And I forgot, now I was like moving around here in the scene. To move around it with in the scene view, you can use the scroll in the mouse scroll button, and you can zoom in, zoom out with the scroll button. And if you press the actual scroll, you can pan around in the scene. Okay, so that's how you can move around in the scene view. Now, this is about since we are in 2D, you don't need to worry about rotating and everything, so the perspective is always the same. Now, to move GameObject in the scene, so we have our GameObject 0, 0, 0, and to actually see our GameObject, you can see that we have different options here. And we have the View tool, and the View tool is what allows us to control the scene. So instead, when you select the View tool, instead of pressing the scroll button in the mouse button, you just press the left mouse button, and you can pan the scene view. And then we have the Move tool. And the Move tool is related, so this is related to the scene. All the other ones are related to the GameObject that is selected. So you can see that when I select the Move tool, and I select the camera or the GameObject, I have this axis here. And this axis is what allows us to see where our GameObject is. Since our GameObject is empty, we cannot see it, but we can see that, okay, our GameObject is here. And it also allows us to move our GameObject in the scene view. So you can see now that we have the move selected, if I come here and change the position, for example, X to be 1, you can see that the GameObject is now positioned here at the X1, Y0. And you can also change to whatever you want here. So you can see 3, 4, 5. You can also change the Y-axis, and you can also give it negative numbers. So you can see that our scene has, in this case, since it's 2D, it has two coordinates, two axes. So we have the x-axis and the y-axis, and the x-axis works, it's positive for when we move to the right and negative when we move for the left. And the y-axis is positive when we move up and negative when we move down. This always related to the scene origin. So we can see that the scene origin is this point right here, and if I move here, it increases the x value. If I move left, it decreases the x value. So this is also another way that you can move objects. So you can, like you saw before, you can just change the values here, or you can come here to the GameObject and just click the axis that you want to move and drag it around. So you can see that I'm dragging on the x-axis. If I drag the green arrow, I'm dragging on the y-axis. And if you drag on this square here, you can drag on both axes at the same time. And you can see that the position is also updating here. So if I put it here, you can see that the values change. I'm going to control it, go back to the origin. So our GameObject is on the origin. Then you can move it. You can also rotate it by enabling the rotate tool. Since we are in 2D, you are only going to rotate your objects on the z-axis. So if you have like an image on 2D, you're not going to rotate the image forward or on the side. So you're going to rotate it something like this, which is on the z-axis. And we have the scale. It works in the same way as the move one, so you can increase the scale on the x, increase the scale on the y, or increase the scale on both axes. And the other ones we are not going to be worried about. This is for the hack tool is for when we are building UI, and the transform tool shows you all the other three, so position, rotation, and scale combined. And you can just use all these gizmos that you have here if you want. I think I never used this, to be honest. Also, shortcuts to change between these options is basically the QWERTY. So Q for this one, W, R, T, no, R, T, and Y. E, R, T, and Y. Yeah, QWERTY. It's basically these buttons here. So we have a game object. A game object has one component, which is a transform component. All game objects have this component, and basically the components are what gives attributes and behaviors to our game objects. So, for example, our main camera is nothing more than another game object that is also positioned in our screen, in our scene, that has a transform component and also has a camera component and an audio listener. So it's this camera component that makes this game object a camera. And this is an important distinction to make because a camera is not a special type of game object. It's only an empty game object with a camera component that is applied to it. So if I want, I can make this game object also a camera. How? I can add a component. So when you select the game object, you can see here in the inspector you have the add component button, and I can select, okay, I already had the camera. You can see that you have a lot of components that you can add, but you can search for the component that you want, and I can add a camera. And now this game object is also a camera, just like the other one. So this is just to show you that Unity uses a component-based approach, which means that you have game objects, and game objects are nothing more than containers of components. It's the components that make a game object what you want it to be. So if a game object has a camera component, now it is a camera. If it has a light component, then it becomes a light, or a lot more that I'm not going to cover here. So I'm going to remove this one. And our camera, so it has a transform, a camera, and an audio listener. I'm not going to go over the camera properties right now, but so that you know, you need always have a camera, and the camera needs to have not the game object camera actually, but besides the camera, you also need to have an audio listener component applied to any game object that you have on your scene, because the audio listener is the component that is responsible for you to be able to hear sounds that you play in your game. So for some reason, if you are playing sound and you are not listening to anything when you play your game, it's because probably you are missing an audio listener, and you can only have one. So just so you know this. So let me think. Okay, so we talked about all the main concepts. So we have a project has scenes, a scenes have game objects, and game objects have components. These are the three. Not the scenes, the game object, and components are the three main concepts in a Unity project. So the components are what makes a game object what you want it to be. So if you want a game object to be a camera, you give it a camera component. You position game objects always belongs to a scene. You position game objects in a scene, and you can change those values and check where the game object is and everything using the transform component. And this is the basic understanding of how Unity projects work. Now, coming back to the interface, so you know that you have the scene view, which gives you an overview or a view of how your scene is set up, where your objects are in the scene and everything. You have your game view, which is a preview of how the game will look. You have the hierarchy view, which basically gives you a list of all the game objects that you have in your scene. You have the project view, which shows you all the files that you have in your project, the actual files that you have in your computer. And you have the inspector view, which basically gives you the list of components that the selected game object has. So when you select a component, you have a list of components here. Now, going back, and you also have the console, but we are not going to be worried about the console right now. When we go back to Scratch, and just to make a parallel with the Scratch interface. So you already saw that Scratch has a stage view, which in a way in Unity corresponds to the scene and game views. And Scratch has this sprite panel here, which is basically where you import your sprites. And we could see this something like the project view. So this is a list of all the assets that you have in your project. And this is the list. The project view shows you the list of all the assets that you have in your project as well. Now, the difference to make between here Scratch and Unity is that in Scratch, all the assets that you have in your project are automatically added to the stage. So when you create when you come here and you import a new sprite, okay, surprise. Let's see, okay, now I have a shirt. When you import a new sprite, the sprite is automatically added to to the stage and to the game. So you cannot have assets that are not present on the game. I mean, you can only if you hide the assets. But Scratch assumes that when you import the new stuff here, it appears automatically in the game. In Unity, you don't have that. So if I import a new image here, and now let's see how to import images here. I think you have like import new asset. Yeah, okay. I never do this. So usually what I do, I just like drag the asset here. So you can come here and import new asset, or you can just go to the folder where you have your assets. Let me go to the project assets. These are the assets that we are going to be using in the game. So actually, and the link for these assets is on the description. It's on a shared drive folder. And you can just select an image and import it to the project. And you can see that now I have the image inside my project. And I'm going to show you on the next video how to organize this. But now I have the image on my project. But you can see that the image is not automatically added to the scene view. So this is also a big difference, because in Scratch, when you import a sprite, it automatically appears in the stage view. In Unity, it does not appear. It only appears on the stage view when you actually import the sprite into the when you add the sprite to the hierarchy view. I'm not going to show you how to do it right now, but on the next video you'll see, and we'll deal about the sprites. So it's just so that you understand this difference. Now, the other thing that we have is that when you select any sprite that you have in your game, you can see that these updates to have your code, the costumes and sounds. And here you have the properties of your sprite, so where the sprite is positioned, the size, direction, and everything. So you can see in a way that this right here corresponds to, this right here corresponds to, in a way, to the transform component that you have here. So when you select a sprite here, it updates this. And when you select a sprite here, a game object, it updates this. So you have the properties as well. And all sprites in the Scratch have code, costumes, and sounds. And like I showed you, in Unity, you don't have this. So in Unity, a game object by default doesn't have anything. So when you press it, the only thing that it has is a transform. And if you want your game object to have code, costumes, and sounds like you had in Scratch, we are going to use components. So this is the main thing that you need to think about when using Unity. In Unity, a scene has game objects, and game objects have components. And that's basically it. And yeah, I mean, this is a big overview, and yeah, we are quite long already. But I hope you guys understood how Unity works, these basic concepts, how the interface works. Of course, there is a lot of new concepts, there is a lot of new tabs and everything, and you're going to get a hang of it when you start actually working, which you are going to do on the next video that I'm going to make, which is about importing the sprites and positioning the sprites here on the scene. And I think that will give you a better sense of how to work with all these views. So by now, this is what I wanted to show you guys. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, trouble installing Unity or anything, just hit me up and we'll talk about it. So yeah, thank you.